Hi,
Hi.
how are you?
Good.
How does it feel to be interviewed by your son?
I think it's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I have a few questions about love that I wanted to ask.
Sure.
I wanted to start by asking what your favorite way to be loved and to show love is.
For me, it's very simple. It's the ability to listen and to listen intently, to listen honestly to the person talking to you. I mean, that's the greatest way to show love. And for me to feel it is if the person also reciprocates and listen to what I have to say.
So, like a form of communication.
A form of communication that reaches the heart. It's not, it's not communication at the intellectual level, but something much deeper than that.
How can somebody develop that?
Uh, it has a great deal to do with what kind of traits you have cultivated in your life, what values do you carry, what skills in communication skills do you have, the freedom you have with emotional expression and emotional relatedness, and the degree to which you're able to stand out of your emotional baggage, because that's really the barrier that prevents most people from truly listening. So if you can learn to stand outside of that, then you are in a much better place to be receptive.
And you've been practicing Buddhism for 30 years now or more?
Uh, Almost 33 years.
I'm assuming that plays a role in your development of love and your capacity to do the things that you're talking about with
Yeah,
your relationships.
yeah. Certainly, it began with Buddhism, but it doesn't end with Buddhism. And when we say Buddhism, I certainly don't view it as another form of conventional religions. Uh, it's a psycho-spiritual work in progress, and I was lucky that I had the opportunity to gain insights and to dig into the treasures of other spiritual traditions and other great thinkers and spiritual thinkers in history.
Mm-hmm. As somebody who came from Palestine, I mean, it's not common to explore Buddhism.
No, no, it's
Um,
not.
what what are the forces that sort of led you to that? Because you were raised Christian, so maybe there was something that you weren't finding in Christianity or some dissatisfaction that you had. But just curious how a Palestinian finds their way to Buddhism.
I think, to make a long story short, I would say that uh, a series of uh, inner turmoil and traumatic events growing up for all kinds of reasons have forced me to be more oriented toward the inner world than to the outside world. That eventually brought me to the field of psychology and to the interest and an interest in introspection and self-exploration. And that took me to Eastern traditions. And from there, I went to Buddhism and to Zen in particular, as well as exploring various other spiritual traditions.
So, in my experience, it's been unusual to find many Palestinians who have pursued Buddhism. So I'm curious, what are the factors that led you to even discover it and learn about it? And then growing up Christian, what sort of made you pivot away from that and dive into Buddhism a little bit more?
Wow, uh, it's a big question. Uh, because everything in life is a, is a matter of cause and effect. In order for me to clarify where I am today, I really have to go back in my history and talk about this began, and as a result, this caused this, and this caused this, and so forth. As a child, because of a number of traumatic events in my childhood, it forced me to become more attuned to the inner world and to the world of my imagination. That eventually led me to an interest in my religion and to mythology, to movies, to the whole visual inner experience. Eventually, later on as a child, I became also, as a young student, I became interested in history, in art, in literature, but especially in history. When I came to America, I was already highly interested in psychology, and so it was very natural for me to go into that field. My work in psychology has equipped me to understand and appreciate the contributions of Eastern traditions such as yoga, Buddhism, and Zen, and various other schools of mysticism from the East. And that eventually took me to Buddhism and to Zen. But also it took me to many other spiritual traditions and to the work of great thinkers throughout history, including thinkers in the West.
What was it about Buddhism specifically that you were attracted to? Because you spent most of your focus on Buddhism.
I did. It respects my intelligence. It does not pit me against myself. It does not force me to compromise my common sense in order to accept something that is contrary to my common sense. It's downright practical. It is in harmony with science. It is in harmony with modern psychology. And I just think it's the spirituality for the new age.
You talked about trauma that you experienced when you were younger as one of the reasons that caused you to look for something more or to find Buddhism. Are these traumas specific to being Palestinian, or are these individual traumas?
Well, of course, the events of 1948 have caused a great deal of traumas for a lot of people, and has caused a lot of families to separate, has caused a lot of pain and suffering trying to adjust to a new reality in Palestine. I was sent to a boarding school at a very young age because the events prevented my father and my mother from working and earning a living. So I ended up in an orphanage in Jerusalem.
One of the things I've always sort of been conscious of is that if it's okay to talk about that you grew up without a father who left when you were a kid, and I was always curious how that shaped you as a father, how that informed kind of the father that you wanted to be to me, and because you didn't have a model for that, so it's interesting to me that you did a pretty good job.
Well, thank you. That's reassuring. I did not have a mentor. I did not have a role model. I didn't have a teacher. I didn't have a guide. I did not have the male influence to equip me and to prepare me for the world ahead. So in many respects, I have to be my own father, and I have to train myself and teach myself. And when I became a father, I wanted to make sure that I will be able to give you all the things that were missing in my upbringing.
One of my experiences as a child growing up was I always felt loved, and kind of in comparison to sort of my friends and a lot of stories I hear about other families, it always kind of struck me that funny that the love that we experienced in our house was different or not common. I mean, where do you think that love and that tenderness that you have comes from?
I think a big part of it comes from my mother's side of the family and my sisters. Later on in my childhood, when I rejoined my family and grew, and we lived for the first time together as a family unit, my mother was very expressive, my sisters were very expressive, and so I grew up with that. Lots of hugging, lots of kisses.
Also part of the culture.
It's part of the culture too. To a different degree in different families, but yeah, it's a big part of the culture.
You must be getting something out of giving love as well too. I mean, it's not
well, it feels good. What can I say? You know, you were a very lovely child. You were very affectionate too. You were very energetic. You were handsome. You were smart. You were easy to engage. You were easy to love, and so you made it very easy for me.
How do you think I could do a better job of reciprocating love as an adult now? I mean, especially in COVID, we can't hug, we can't kiss.
I know.
I mean, what meets the requirements in this moment of how we can love each other, or how I can do a better job of expressing it?
I have a long list. No, I'm kidding. Like I said before, listening, being patient, make your family a priority, create opportunities for us to share intimacy, to share love, to share experiences, to share stories, to share food, to share a dance, to share music. Sharing and being together and being patient and being understanding. And when we see faults, just let go and move on.
What's your favorite memory that you have of our time together?
Oh my God, all of it. All of it, or at least most of it. I really, you used to like to run around the dining room table, and for me to pretend like I'm chasing you, and just I can close my eyes and I can see you. That was always fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could still recreate that if you want.
We need a big table for that.
Yeah. Do you see the way that we love as a culture or society changing? Does it feel different to you than it used to be, or do you still feel that love is out there, but we're just not tapped into it?
Of course, love is always, the potential for love is always out there. We are wired as human beings when we are at our best to express and to show love. I think these days, a lot of parents, there is a lot of expectations and burden put on parents because they want their kids to accomplish so many things in such a short time that their main focus is on helping the kids acquire all these endless skills, whether it is music or computer or whatever it is that, or gym or after school tutoring, or I mean, there is a lot that is expected of kids today, and parents are always on edge, Are the kids making progress? Are the kids making it? Are the kids successful? And that leaves very little time for other activities that are more emotional and social in nature. That's the time, that's the place where we can show love in our emotions, not in our head.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any lessons in your life that you've learned that you want to share with me to spare me from your same fate?
Yeah. The first lesson is that the mind is the most precious thing in the universe, and you have to take care of it. You have to protect it, you have to nurture it, and you have to understand how it is impacted by the various events and forces that can shape it and change it. That's number one. Number two is to understand that relationships are really critical for our mental health. A good relationship. Mind and relationships are like a baby. You need to take care of them, you need to help them grow, you need to insulate them from harm, and you need to do the right thing for them so they can grow healthy.
What would be the Buddhist method for working on strengthening the mind and dealing with all these things?
You do meditation, you develop focus of mind, you develop self-discipline, you develop resilience and the ability to let go and to shift. You develop awareness, you develop self-awareness. Not only you're aware of things around you, but you're aware of events in your own mind, and you are aware of your emotions. You're aware how your mind and your emotions can affect the way you perceive the world and the way you relate to it. These are the critical elements in Buddhist practice that can enhance your ability to love and to be compassionate and to be peaceful in the world.
And I mean, a lot of the things that you're talking about and a lot of the things that I hear in Buddhism also seem like they share space with therapy or psychology, which is something that you've also practiced. I mean, do the two practices sort of go hand in hand, the things that you learn in Buddhism or the things that you learn in psychotherapy, or are they two separate tools?
No, they are not separate. I think one can look at the Buddha as one of the greatest psychologists that ever lived. Any kind of introspection, any process where you look at the mind and you work with the mind is by definition spiritual. There is no distinction between psychology and the spirit, between psyche and spirit. It's really one reality. For convenience sake, we divide it into different categories, but it's really entering the same room from two different doors.
How does your role as a clinical psychologist inform the way that you give and receive love?
It helps me to be more forgiving, more accepting, less judgmental, because now I have a much better understanding as to the source of pain in people's life. So I have a tool in which I can take conflicts and pain and put it in a bigger perspective, and so that allows me to be more accepting and more tolerant and more giving.
What was the hardest part of growing up without a dad, if I can ask that?
Looking back in retrospect, is realizing that I did not have, like we said earlier, a male role model, a mentor, a guide, a teacher that can give me the tools I need in order to venture into the world without fear or without trepidation. I did it. Mm-hmm. It was hard, it was painful, but I did it.
What was the biggest thing that helped you find strength or courage? Or
I think the culture was a big factor. in that, first of all, I was not the only one who was traumatized because of the events of 1948 and me being separated from my family. A lot of people in my generation went through very similar kind of experiences. And so as I was growing up, I realized, and I saw people who were struggling and making it and being successful in spite of what they went through. And so that was a model for me. That was a template. If they can do it, so can I.
Palestinian resilience.
Palestinian resilience,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
So the not having a father, a role model around, and being mostly on your own, what did that tell you about the kind of father that you wanted to be?
I wanted to be available. I wanted to be present. Remember, I had a private practice in the evening that I went to after my day job. And as you were growing up, I made a decision to stop my private practice and just be home in the evening so I can be involved in raising you and spending time together and teach you and prepare you to the world.
In a weird way, I mean, it sounds bad to say this, but it makes me kind of wonder, well, what would be different if you didn't have that trauma or you did grow up with a father? It seems in some weird way that the adversity almost contributed to some of your strength and good qualities.
In a paradoxical way, yes, I would say that. I mean, without that experience, I doubt very much I would have appreciated the importance of the presence of a father in his children's life.
I'm worried that my experience was so good that I'm going to take it for granted.
You may, that's a danger, or you may decide to emulate it because you have a very good role model for you.
Let's see. We'll find out. When do you feel the closest to me?
Right now. When we are together and we sit down and we talk, we are interested in what each has to say. When we share stories, when I see you happy, I mean, that's my greatest joy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoy the conversations that we have. There's a long history of us talking together about different subjects in psychology, Buddhism, life. So this is very nostalgic.
Yeah. Remember when Mom, when you were growing up, Mom worked second shift. So you were with me at home in the evening, 4 days a week. And every evening almost, for many years before, as I was preparing dinner, during dinner, after dinner, when I was cleaning up, you were with me in the kitchen. And we were talking, and you were asking me 1,000,001 questions. Every night we did that for a long time. And that was something I tremendously enjoyed. And it was a great gift for me because I can be a father. I can be a good father. And I have a way to gauge how am I doing as a father every day, you know. So that was a great experience for me.
What's something that I have helped you learn about your own mental health?
You have highlighted for me an element of resilience that I got to appreciate more and more the more time we spent together. You grew up in this generation, and I grew up, you know, in my generation. I come from a different world, with a different worldview, with a different value system, and with a different way of adapting to a changing world. And we live in a culture now. You grew up in a culture that is fast changing all the time. And so as I see you adapt to that change and being proficient in that adaptation. That's a big lesson for me.
Yeah, there's also qualities that comes from your upbringing and the old world that where things were a little bit slower that I also feel like we're losing too. And yes, it does feel like we're adapting and, you know, this generation is proficient in like a lot of little things, but I can't put my finger on it. You know, it seems like I'm lacking something, maybe patience or, you know, slowness that you seem to have, that I don't know how to get that back or connect with it.
Yeah. When I was growing up, especially when the weather was nice, in spring, summer, and fall, part fall, my mother would take me and my sisters and my brother, no, mainly me and my sisters, to spend an evening with one of our friends. So it was very common for families to visit each other like that and to spend the whole evening talking, telling stories, chatting, drinking coffee and tea, and so that was a pace of life that I grew up with and always felt very pleasant to me. And even if during the day you worked hard and you were in that rat race and under a lot of stress, comes evening and you take your family and you visit another family and you spend time together and you chat and you take it easy and you have fun and you tell jokes and so I think that's something we miss here. And unless we make time for this kind of activities, social engagement, it will gone for good, and we will never learn the lesson that comes from it. You know, how to enjoy taking it easy and sharing with company and listening and talking and.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be one of the hardest parts about living here, away from family. In Palestine, we have a lot of like aunts, uncles, cousins, and family members and friends, and here we're kind of isolated from that. But then also, I feel like even growing up here, I feel disconnected from a lot of people, and social media makes you think that you are connected, but it just feels really isolating.
It's
here.
A phony connection, really,
Yeah.
social media.
Yeah. Yeah, I long for finding a community, and it always feels like I'm looking for something, because I don't have siblings, and it's just you and mom, and you know, I wish that it was this culture was a little bit more loving, or it was a little bit easier to connect with neighbors or friends and find intimacy, but it feels difficult here. It feels difficult now.
Neighbors here are very suspicious. They are very aloof. They are very distant. Back home, it is unheard of for you not to know the names of your neighbors. Here, it's very common.
Yeah.
I don't know the last name of my neighbors next door.
All right, so this is rapid fire question round.
Okay.
What have you tolerated from people in the past that you no longer have space for? You're a very tolerant person.
Yeah, but I'm becoming less and less tolerant of ignorance.
Ignorance in what form? Like racism?
No, ignorance in the form of delusions. You know, for people not to see the delusive nature of their belief systems and their failure to see what they think is real is nothing more than mind constructs. And they think that just because something appears in their mind, then it's real and it's objective. So being very, you know, the element of subjectivity, the element of delusion, the elements of mental distortions, that is I'm becoming less tolerant.
How do you nurture romantic love or love with a partner, especially after you've been together for 30 plus
Yeah,
years.
yeah. Uh, I don't know what it means. I don't believe in trying to nurture love, but it makes more sense to me to say I work on myself and I work on the relationship. Uh,
So you think it always requires work? It's never easy?
no, it's never easy.
Mm.
Uh, I don't think I don't think you can manufacture love. That's why you cannot nurture it, but you can, in the same way that you uh, plant anything. You know, it will grow only if you create the right conditions for it. If it has the right soil, right fertilizer, right sun, right water, it will grow. Same thing with love. If you work on yourself and you create the right internal conditions for it, then you will create pleasantness in you. And when you create pleasantness in you, and you create equanimity, and you create peace, and you create self-satisfaction, then these are the conditions you need for you to be loving. And love will naturally come.
You don't think attraction plays any part of it?
Well, physical attraction comes only in the beginning, you know,
Well, not just physical, any kind of attraction.
only in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think it's nature's way to make sure that you hook with someone, but that's not what will keep the relationship lasting and keep you together for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other stuff, the working on your mind, working on the relationship, working on the qualities and the mind qualities that can make you more forgiving, more resilient, more accepting, more generous, more affectionate, more compassionate. These are the qualities that can make a relationship thrive.
What was a lesson about love that you learned during the pandemic?
Lack of distraction can enhance it,
Enhance love?
enhance love. Yeah. Enhance you to become more loving.
So this has been a wonderful, thriving period for you?
It really is. I mean, I feel sad about all the people who have passed away, suffered because of the COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it was a growing experience.
Yeah, it's been tough for me, but I'm working on it.
I know. Well, you know, COVID will teach you and will force you to learn to live with yourself. And unless you are your own best friend, you go through a very hard time when you are in quarantine.
How would you say that love is different for you than it is for your mom?
You know, she grew up in a different era, in a different culture, a different time that has informed her understanding of love. For my mother, to provide the basic, especially given the time, around the time when we were young, is to provide security, safety, food, shelter, were a sign of love. And on the other hand, on the negative end of it, she grew up in a culture where to show a sign of love, you have to do something for the other person. In other words, if I don't do what my mother wants me to do, then I don't love my mother, or I don't love somebody else. So it is this kind of limited view of love that I think if she were alive today, we would differ on that. What is the best thing that I've given you? What is the worst thing I've given you?
There were some vegan Boca burgers you used to serve me when I was a kid that were really difficult to
To
finish.
swallow.
And the way that you and Mom showed love and attention to me, I think it's positive because I want to be able to model that for others, and I think you both have very progressive ideas, and you're very loving and compassionate, and you are very selfless, and you do a lot for me. At the same time, I think it also spoiled me a little bit and made, I don't think you can give somebody too much love, but I think especially as an only child, I'm conscious of the ways in which I tend to think the world revolves around me, and I don't like that about myself.
Yeah.
But I want to be mindful when I have kids to give them what they need and be there and be a loving parent, but also do, what I can to also give them space and distance.
I know that's a fine line that most parents try to walk, and many don't succeed to walk that middle path. They don't want their kids to suffer, but they don't understand that without suffering, without the fire of suffering, you really cannot mold the strong, resilient personalities that you want.
Yeah. Sometimes there's a feeling that you and Mom need more love from me, or need me to show it in a different way than what I'm capable of. And it's not that I don't want to, but it often feels like I'm doing the best that I can, but that you need more from me, or it feels like I'm not reciprocating in an equal way.
Yeah, yeah. Part of it is cultural, because in many respects, you love the American way. You express your love based on your American conditioning. And we have learned to show love based on our Palestinian heritage. So there is that part of it. Mom and I are both very well aware that, particularly because you are an only child, that we have to be careful what to expect from you, what you can realistically give us, and how to make sure we give to each other what we need, and not have to wait for us to get it from you, because that too is part of the culture. I've known many mothers and many fathers who find their satisfaction through their kids. And I don't want that. I want to be proud of you. I want to be happy. I want to be successful, but for yourself, not only for me. And so Mom and I try to we give each other all the love we can, and we try to find satisfaction in our life in other ways, and not have to depend on you in order for you to meet certain expectations, in order for us to be happy. That would create misery for us and for you. Mm-hmm. We both want you to be free, to live your life the way it is meant for you to be. It is meant for you to live it. With many parents back home, it's never enough. If we fall into that trap, that can create a lot of grief for both the parents and the children. Parents always want more, children feel they never give enough, and at the end, nobody is a winner.
Yeah.
What is the life lesson, the most important life lesson you feel you've gotten from me?
How much work you put into yourself. Not just how much you read and how much you study, but the real deep work that is sometimes scary to do, and you've done it so long for so consistently that it's daunting for me, because I see how you haven't given up, and when I try to walk the path of self-exploration and introspection, it gets very difficult at times and very easy to sort of abandon it. But yeah, I see how far you've come with it. I've seen firsthand how it's changed you, and help you overcome certain things. And I definitely have a lot of things that I want to work on, and so I know that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, there is, and try to remember that the journey for you is shorter than it is for me, because I started from ground zero, and you don't have to start from zero, you could start from 10, so you have a shorter distance for you to get to where you want to be.
Mm-hmm. I love you.
I love you too.
Thanks for sitting and talking with me.
You're welcome. Hopefully we could do this again. We should.